All right, everyone's talking about this IPO, Yash High Voltage Limited. They're going public. And you know what they specialize in? Transformer bushings. Those things, they keep our power grids going. We've got their draft red herring prospectus
Aye.
and the updated red herring prospectus. And let me tell you, these documents, dense.
Yeah, they are.
But that's why we're here, to break it down.
Exactly.
Think of this as your shortcut to understanding Yash High Voltage.
We'll cut through all that jargon
Yeah.
and get you prepped to make a smart decision.
Exactly. So first off, who is Yash High Voltage? They design and manufacture high voltage and high current transformer bushings. And get this, they're shipping to 60 countries. That's not just local, that's global reach.
And what's interesting is they're not just making any bushings, they're designing to U.S. and European standards, even hitting those INSI benchmarks.
Wow.
So that means they're building to some of the highest quality and safety standards. It's a big advantage globally.
So they've got a niche, but it's a critical part of that power transmission world. They're not just making the product, they're making it to a level that attracts a very specific customer.
And that's not all. Yash High Voltage goes beyond manufacturing. They offer repair, maintenance, even customized solutions. It's a true one-stop shop.
It's like they're not just selling you the bushing, they're selling peace of mind.
Right.
So where is all this happening?
Their base is in Halol, near Vadodara, India.
Vadodara. Are they in the middle of India's power scene?
You could say that. Vadodara is known as the transformer hub of India.
Wow.
It's got the expertise and the infrastructure. It's a powerhouse, literally.
Makes sense to set up shop there. Okay, so let's talk IPO. Yash High Voltage is offering, how many shares is it? 7,576,000 equity shares, with the face value of 5 each. They're hoping to raise some serious capital.
Yeah, the offer has two parts. A fresh issue of shares to raise funds directly, and an offer for sale by the promoter, Mr. Khair Girishchandra Shah. He's been in the business a while. He founded the company back in 2002.
So if someone wants to get in, what's the minimum buy-in?
The minimum is $100,000.
Hmm.
And you could apply through ASBA or UPI. Pretty standard for IPOs. But before you jump in, we have to look at their financials. Does this IPO have strong legs?
All right, let's get into the numbers then. Revenue, how's their top line looking?
Revenue has been growing steadily over the past few years, which is good. But it's not just about revenue, right?
Right.
We want to see how well are they turning that revenue into profit.
Exactly. So EBITDA, what's the story there?
Their EBITDA is also showing healthy growth. And their EBITDA margin, it's around 15%. That's pretty good for this industry. Tells us they're managing well.
So they're not just making money, they're managing their costs. But what about their profit after tax?
Their panties have been going up. Reassuring. They're not just making revenue, they're converting it into actual profit.
That's the kind of growth investors like. But you know, every company has debt, right? What's the situation like for Yash High Voltage?
They do have some long-term borrowings. But here's the thing. Some of that debt is probably for their expansion plans.
Oh, okay.
If they play it right, that debt could be a good sign. They're investing in their future.
Sounds like a good financial picture. But with any investment, there are always risks.
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing's guaranteed.
Right. The prospectus actually does a good job of outlining the risks.
So let's walk through some. What are the big ones investors should know about?
Well, one is their reliance on the transformer market. If demand drops, it impacts their bushings. Classic case of what goes up can come down.
Their fate is tied to that whole sector.
What else? Raw material prices, copper, insulating paper. Prices can change. And that affects their costs and ultimately their profit.
Makes sense. And what about the competition?
It's fierce domestically
Yeah.
and internationally. You've got giants like GE and Siemens. Yash High Voltage has to be smart.
Even with a good niche, you can't relax.
Right.
There's always someone trying to get ahead. Something else that stood out to me in the prospectus, their manufacturing is all in Vadodara. Isn't that risky?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's concentration risk. Any disruption there, natural or otherwise, could really impact them.
Makes you think about spreading things out a bit. Anything else investors should consider?
Regulatory changes, always a wild card. The power industry is heavily regulated. Any changes could mean Yash High Voltage has to adapt. And that can be expensive.
Gotta be flexible.
Definitely.
And don't forget, they export to 60 countries. Currency changes could affect things too.
Absolutely. Exchange rates can change their earnings. It makes the decision more complex. That's why investors need to really look at those risks. Do your own research. No one can make that decision but you.
It's always good to remember, investing is never certain. Weigh those potential rewards against the risks. Let's shift gears a bit. Yash High Voltage has big plans, right?
They do. They're planning a brand new facility.
Wow. What's the strategy there?
They've already secured land. They're moving forward with acquisition. The price tag is 73.22 crore.
That's a lot.
Yeah, a significant investment. They're funding part of it through the IPO.
They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Right.
What's the payback?
Boosting production. Meeting that growing demand. Remember, they're already in 60 countries. Imagine if they can make even more.
Going for a bigger piece of the pie? And it's not just making more. They're investing in new technology, like dry RIP bushings. Those aren't your average bushings, are they?
You're right. Dry RIP bushings are a newer technology. They use resin-impregnated paper insulation instead of the traditional oil-filled bushings.
So what's the advantage?
Well, they're safer, more efficient, longer lifespan. Yash High Voltage is at the forefront of this change. Could give them an edge.
So they're ahead of the curve, but does this new technology create any new problems for them?
It does. While dry RIP bushings are good in many ways, there are challenges. The adoption rate is still low. Convincing customers to switch might take time, and making them require special equipment and skills. Could be expensive at first.
It's a calculated risk, betting on the future. They'll have to
It's
work hard to convince the market.
Right. But speaking of the market, Yash High Voltage's focus on dry RIP bushings. It raises a bigger question about the future of bushings.
What do you mean?
Well, as dry RIP technology gets better and cheaper, it could change the competition. Companies that use it early, like Yash High Voltage, they could get ahead.
Survival of the fittest,
Yeah,
but will this become the main technology?
that's the question. It depends on a lot of things. Regulations, customer preferences, and of course cost. We might see dry RIP bushings in developed markets with stricter rules, while oil-filled bushings stay in places where cost matters most.
So it's not a simple answer.
Right.
The future of bushings. It depends on technology, economics, and rules. That's what makes it interesting. You know, we've been talking a lot about Yash High Voltage, but I think we should zoom out for a second. What does this IPO tell us about India's power infrastructure?
That's a great question. It's like we're looking at India's power sector, and what we see is a lot of change happening.
So Yash High Voltage is part of something bigger.
Yeah.
What trends are we seeing in India right now?
One big one is renewable energy. India wants a lot more solar and wind power, and they're doing it.
Yeah, it's impressive.
But this change to renewables, it means new demands, especially for the power grid. You need a good grid to handle all that new power.
And that's where Yash High Voltage comes in.
Exactly. As India gets more renewable energy, they'll need more transformer bushings.
So they're riding that wave.
Yeah. But it's not just renewables. India needs more electricity in general because their economy and population are growing.
More people, more businesses.
Right. So India has a big job. They need to modernize their power grid.
Sounds like a huge opportunity, but also a lot of challenges.
Of course. India's power sector is complicated. There are things they need to fix, like energy loss during transmission,
Yeah.
making the grid stable, making sure everyone has access to electricity.
And it costs a lot of money.
Yeah. And that's where this IPO is interesting. Yash High Voltage is getting money from investors to help them grow and be part of building a better power grid for India.
So it's more than just an IPO.
Right.
It's about India's energy future.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been fascinating. We've covered a lot, from transformer bushings to India's power infrastructure. We've looked at Yash High Voltage's financials, their growth plans, the risks they face, and the competition.
We hope this has helped you to understand this IPO and make your own investment decisions.
Remember, investing is a journey.
It is.
There's always more to learn.
And as you learn, remember that every investment decision is a choice about the future you want.
That's a good point. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Yash High Voltage and India's power landscape. We hope you found it helpful. And remember to always do your own research.
And if you have any questions, connect with us on social media. Let's keep talking about this.
Thanks for listening. And until next time, happy investing.